Let me ask you something real quick. Have you ever needed your family at the worst moment of your life? And they straight up said, "Nah, we're busy." Yeah, that kind of silence hits different. My name's Myra, I'm 34, a cardiology resident running on caffeine and prayers, and a single mom to 3-year-old twins Lily and Lucas. My life was already chaos on a good day. But 2 months ago, it flipped upside down in a way I never saw coming. It was a Tuesday evening. I was driving home after a brutal 16-hour hospital shift, the kind that leaves your brain foggy and your body screaming. The traffic light turned green. I moved forward. And the boom, a truck blew through a red light doing at least 50 and slammed straight into my driver's side. Glass shattered. Metal screamed. My world spun like a broken carousel before everything went black. When I came to, I was in an ambulance. Bright lights. Sirens. Pain ripping through my stomach like fire. I tried to breathe but couldn't catch a full one. "Myra, hey, stay with me." I recognized the voice. Dr. Marcus Smith. ER physician. We'd worked together for years. His face was tense in a way that scared me more than the pain. "You were in a bad accident," he said. "We think you're bleeding internally. You're probably going into surgery." Surgery. That word barely registered before another thought crashed in harder. "My kids," I whispered. "The twins. They're home with the sitter. She leaves at 8. Marcus checked his watch. "It's 7:15. 45 minutes. That's all I had to find someone to watch my babies while doctors tried to keep me alive." My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone, blood smearing across the screen. I called my parents, the people who were supposed to show up when everything fell apart. It rang. Once. Twice. 4 times. Dad answered, already annoyed. "Myra, we're heading out." "What's going on?" "I was in a car accident." I gasped. "I'm being rushed into surgery. Please, I need you and Mom to watch Lily and Lucas, just for a few hours." Silence. Then muffled voices. My mom, my sister Vanessa. Laughter in the background. The call ended. A second later, my phone buzzed. Family group chat. The message was from my mother. "You've always been a nuisance and a burden. We have Taylor Swift tickets with Vanessa tonight. Figure it out yourself." I stared at the screen, waiting for it to change. It didn't. Another message popped up. "Dad, you're a doctor. You're used to hospitals. Don't make this a bigger deal than it needs to be." Then Vanessa chimed in, a laughing emoji. I was bleeding out in an ambulance and my family laughed. That's when something inside me broke clean, sharp, and permanent. And that moment, that was just the beginning. You know what hurts worse than physical pain? Realizing mid-crisis that the people who raised you don't see you as family, just an inconvenience. I didn't cry in that ambulance. Not when my mom called me a burden. Not when my sister laughed. Not even when the pain ripped through my body so hard, I thought I might pass out again. Know what I felt was colder than tears. Marcus noticed my face go blank. "Myra, what did they say?" I swallowed hard. "They're busy." That was all I said, but it was everything. My phone screen dimmed. Battery almost dead. Blood on my fingers. My hands were shaking, but my mind snapped into survival mode. The same mode I'd lived in for years without realizing it. "Marcus," I said quietly, "can I use your phone?" He didn't ask questions, just handed it over. I Googled 24-hour emergency nanny services, fingers flying. Found one. Called. Explained fast and clean: medical emergency, twins, sitter leaving, immediate coverage needed. "Yes, I'll pay triple." "Yes, I authorize it now." "Yes, please coordinate directly with my sitter." 4 minutes. That's all it took to do what my parents refused to do. When I handed Marcus his phone back, he was staring at me like he'd just watched something snap in half. "You okay?" he asked. "No," I said honestly. "But I will be." Before my phone died completely, I did one more thing. "Can you screenshot those messages?" I asked him. "Just in case?" He nodded. "Already done." The ambulance doors flew open. ER lights. Controlled chaos. Doctors barking orders. Someone yelling vitals. My body was wheeled away, but my mind stayed stuck on that group chat. Nuisance. Burden. Funny thing is, I'd been quietly carrying my parents' lives on my back for almost a decade. The surgery lasted 4 hours. Turns out my spleen had ruptured, internal bleeding. The surgeon later told me if I'd arrived even 20 minutes later, I might not have made it. I woke up groggy, sore, alive. 5 days in the hospital, EVs beeping machines, nurses checking on me around the clock. Know how many calls I got from my parents? 0. No texts, no visits, no, "Are you alive?" The emergency nanny service, though. They were incredible. They coordinated with my regular sitter. Made sure Lily and Lucas were safe, fed, calm. Sent me photos every day, my kids smiling, playing, completely unaware that their mom almost didn't come home. Strangers showed up better for my kids than their own grandparents. That truth sat heavy in my chest. On day 3, I asked the nurse for my laptop. "You sure?" she said. "You should be resting." "I need to finish something," I replied. And that's when I opened my banking app. 8 years of automatic transfers stared back at me like a receipt for my own neglect. Mortgage payments, health insurance, emergency repairs, monthly support. With one steady breath, I canceled every single one. No anger, no hesitation, no guilt, just clarity. For the first time in years, I wasn't bleeding. I was letting go. And trust me, they noticed. Here's the wild part: when you stop carrying people who've been leaning on you for years, they don't ask why first. They ask, "Where's the money?" I was home for less than a week when the calls started rolling in. Unknown numbers, voicemails stacking up, texts from cousins I barely spoke to. At first I ignored them. Recovery was rough. Moving felt like my insides were stitched together with barbed wire. The twins were glued to me like they could sense how close they came to losing their mom. But curiosity eventually got me. I checked one voicemail. "Myra, this is your father. There seems to be a problem with the mortgage payment. Call us immediately." Not "Are you okay?" Not "How's your recovery?" Mortgage. Another voicemail from my mom. Voice shaking, dramatic. "We don't understand what's happening. The insurance payment didn't go through. This must be some kind of mistake." Mistake? I laughed. A dry, exhausted laugh that surprised even me. For 8 years, I'd never missed a payment. Not once. I'd quietly handled their bills while juggling med school, residency, pregnancy, single motherhood. I kept receipts, spreadsheets, dates, amounts. I don't know why I did it. Maybe some part of me knew one day I'd need proof, to convince myself I wasn't imagining the imbalance. I opened that spreadsheet again. 8 years. 96 months. Over $300,000. Money I sent without conditions, without recognition, without gratitude. And yet there I was, labeled a burden. That night, Marcus stopped by with coffee. He'd been checking on me since the accident. No pressure, no expectations. "You look lighter," he said. "I cut them off," I replied. He didn't ask who, he didn't flinch. "Good," he said simply. 2 days later, there was a knock on my door. Not my parents. My grandfather, tall, silver-haired, former federal judge. A man who'd spent 40 years calling out lies for a living. I hadn't seen him in almost 3 years. He hugged me carefully, eyes scanning my face, then my surgical scar. "I know," he said quietly. My throat tightened. "Know what?" "Everything," he replied. "Eleanor told me." Aunt Eleanor, my mom's younger sister. The only person in the family who'd ever side-eyed how I was treated. Grandpa sat at my kitchen table, watching Lily and Lucas play, smiling like his heart was finally catching up with time he'd lost. "They remind me of you," he said. "Stubborn. Bright." Then his expression shifted. "Do you still have records of the money you sent your parents?" I nodded slowly. "Every payment." "Good," he said, standing. "Because next Saturday is my 70th birthday. The whole family will be there." He looked me straight in the eye. "And so will the truth." My stomach flipped. "What are you planning?" He smiled, not cruel, not angry. "Just precise. Facts," he said. "Facts don't yell. They don't insult. They just sit there and dare people to deny them." For the first time since the accident, fear wasn't what I felt. It was anticipation. Because when someone who's benefited from your silence starts rewriting the story, it's only a matter of time before the receipts speak. Have you ever walked into a room knowing everyone inside thinks you're the problem? That's a different kind of pressure. The day of Grandpa's birthday party, my hands shook not from weakness but from knowing what was coming. I wore a simple navy dress. Nothing flashy. Nothing emotional. This wasn't about drama. It was about truth. The manila folder sat heavy in my bag. Inside it, 8 years of silence documented. Grandpa's house looked like something out of a movie. White columns, manicured lawn, fancy cars lining the driveway. The whole family was there. Laughing, drinking, pretending. I spotted my parents immediately. Dad looked confident. Relaxed. Like a man who didn't realize the floor under him was cracking. Mom was smiling too hard. Vanessa, my sister, stood between them in a designer dress, glowing like she always did. They saw me. Mom's smile dropped. Dad stiffened. Vanessa recovered first. "Oh my God, Myra," she said, air kissing my cheek. "We heard about your accident." "I almost died," I replied calmly. Her smile twitched. "Well, you look fine now." There it was. Fine. As if surviving meant nothing else mattered. I moved on, grabbing juice for the twins, when I heard Vanessa's voice loud enough to travel. "I'm really worried about Myra," she said to a cluster of relatives. "Ever since the accident, she's been unstable." Mom dabbed at her eyes. "She cut us off completely. Won't answer calls. We're just so scared for her." Scared. I stood frozen, realizing what they were doing. They were controlling the narrative, painting me as the unstable one before the truth came out. Aunt Eleanor slid beside me. "They've been calling relatives all week," she whispered. "Planting seeds." I looked across the room. Grandpa caught my eye. He gave me a nod. Then he stood up. The room quieted instantly. "At my age," Grandpa began, voice calm but commanding, "you don't need many birthdays. But this one feels important." Polite laughter. "I've listened to some concerns about Myra today." Dad shifted. Grandpa turned toward him. "Richard?" he asked. "Who's been paying your mortgage for the last 8 years?" The silence was violent. Dad blinked. "We what?" "Your mortgage," Grandpa repeated. $2,400 a month. For 96 months. Mom's face drained of color. Grandpa opened the folder. "I have records. Every transfer. Every date." A murmur rippled through the room. "That's a misunderstanding," Mom stammered. "No one is arguing consent," Grandpa said calmly. "We're discussing facts." He flipped pages. Mortgage payments $230,000. Health insurance $176,000. Emergency expenses and repairs $45,000. Vanessa looked like she'd been slapped. "Total," Grandpa said, closing the folder. "Just over $360,000. Someone gasped. Then Grandpa delivered the final blow. When Myra was bleeding internally and heading into surgery, she asked her parents to watch her children. He raised his phone. This was the response. He read it. Word for word. The room exploded. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't defending myself. I was being seen. You could hear a pin drop after Grandpa read that message. Not the polite kind of silence, the heavy one. The kind that presses against your chest and forces people to actually feel what they've been ignoring. My mom started crying. Real crying this time. Not the performance tears from earlier. Dad looked like someone had yanked the ground out from under him. His mouth opened, then closed. No words came out. Vanessa was pale. Like, ghost-level pale. Grandpa didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Richard?" he said calmly. "Did you go to the hospital?" Dad swallowed. "No." "Did you call her back?" "No." "Did you check if your daughter survived surgery?" "Nothing." Grandpa nodded once. "That tells me everything." Someone near the back muttered, "Jesus?" An aunt stepped away from my parents. Then another. It wasn't dramatic. It was instinctual, people physically distancing themselves from behavior they couldn't defend anymore. Mom tried again. "We didn't know it was that serious." Grandpa turned slowly. "You were told she was going into surgery. If that's not serious to you, then we have a bigger problem." Vanessa finally spoke, her voice sharp. "This is unfair. You're making us sound heartless." "You did that yourselves?" Aunt Eleanor snapped. "With your words? And your actions?" Grandpa turned to me. "Myra, do you want to say anything?" I hadn't planned to. But suddenly, I felt calm. I stepped forward, Lily on my hip, Lucas holding my hand. "I didn't come here to embarrass anyone," I said. "I came because for years I was told this was normal. That I was strong. That I didn't need support. I looked at my parents. But lying in an ambulance, bleeding, terrified and being told I was a burden, that's when I finally understood. My voice didn't shake. I wasn't strong to you. I was convenient. That one sentence cracked something. Dad whispered, "We gave you everything?" I met his eyes. "No, I paid for everything." Gasps again. "I sent money because I thought that's what love looked like," I continued. "But love doesn't laugh when you might die." Vanessa shook her head. "Families help each other." "You're right," I said. "So where were you when I was pregnant and alone? When I was raising twins while studying for boards? When I needed help for one night?" She had nothing. Grandpa stepped beside me. "This ends today," he said. "No more lies. No more rewriting history." He looked at the room. "You don't have to choose sides. But you do have to acknowledge the truth." The truth had weight, and it was settling fast. My parents left early. No goodbye. No one stopped them. Vanessa followed, head down. The silence they left behind wasn't awkward. It was clean. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the problem walking out of the room. Here's the thing no one tells you about exposing the truth: it doesn't explode. It spreads. Quietly. Relentlessly. Like smoke. The week after Grandpa's party, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Cousins, aunts, relatives who'd barely acknowledged me for years suddenly had questions. I had no idea. "She always made you sound unstable." "I'm so sorry I believed them." One message hit harder than the rest. "I thought you were the lucky one. Turns out you were carrying everyone." That one sat with me. The family group chat? Deleted. Gone. Like it never existed. Funny how fast people erase history when receipts show up. My parents, though. They were learning fast what happens when financial reality hits. 3 months after I cut off the transfers, Aunt Eleanor called me. "They're selling the house." I set my coffee down. "What?" "Mortgage is behind. Savings. No backup plan." I should have felt something: guilt maybe. Satisfaction. Relief. Instead, just tired. "Where are they going?" "Your Uncle Frank let them stay in his guest house. Temporarily." She paused. "With conditions." Conditions. Real ones. Turns out living off your kid for 8 years doesn't build many life skills. And Vanessa. Her life cracked too. Word travels in tight industries. And when people hear you laughed at your sister while she was bleeding internally, contracts disappear. Last I heard, she was waitressing part-time. Designer bags traded for borrowed aprons. Karma didn't scream. It whispered. Meanwhile, something else changed. I slept better. I stopped flinching every time my phone buzzed. The $200 I used to send every month went into a college fund for Lily and Lucas. Watching that balance grow felt right. Marcus came by one night, helped me assemble a toy kitchen for the twins. "You regret it?" he asked casually. "No," I said without hesitation. "I regret waiting so long." That's when I realized something huge. Boundaries don't destroy families. They reveal them. 6 months later, Vanessa called. Her voice was small. "Different." I laughed, she said. At that text. I didn't realize what I was doing. I stayed quiet. "I see it now," she continued. "I liked being the favorite. I didn't ask questions because I didn't want the answers." I believed her. But belief doesn't mean access. "Do better," I told her. "That's all," she cried. I didn't. And that was okay. Some apologies come too late to fix the past, but just in time to stop repeating it. You don't realize how heavy something is until you finally put it down. The months after everything blew up were quiet. Not lonely, just peaceful in a way I'd never experienced before. No financial panic. No emotional gymnastics. No wondering if doing more would finally make me enough. I moved into a smaller apartment closer to the hospital. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, creaky floors. But it was mine. Every bill I paid now stayed where it belonged, with me. Sunday afternoons became my favorite. Grandpa would pick up Lily and Lucas like clockwork, taking them to the zoo or the park, sneaking them ice cream I pretended not to notice. "They're good kids," he told me once. "You're raising them right." That meant more than any compliment I'd ever gotten from my parents. Aunt Eleanor became a regular part of our lives. Dinner twice a month. Honest conversations. No pretending. "You didn't become bitter," she said one night. Lot of people would have. What's the point? I replied. Bitterness just ties you back to the people who hurt you. She smiled. Exactly. My parents stayed distant. Occasionally, I heard updates through the family grapevine: dad working part-time, mom doing bookkeeping for a church, surviving, not thriving. I didn't interfere. This wasn't punishment. It was reality. One evening, after putting the twins to bed, I sat on the couch scrolling through old photos. Birthday I planned. Holidays I paid for. Moments where I smiled while shrinking myself just to keep the peace. And I realized something sharp and freeing. I'd spent years believing love was something you earned through money, reliability, silence. I was wrong. Love doesn't invoice you. The people who showed up when I stopped paying, they were the real ones. Marcus. Grandpa, Eleanor. Friends who brought food, babysat, listened. Not one of them asked for anything in return. That's when it clicked. I hadn't lost my family. I'd found it. You know what hits weirdly hard? When the apology you begged for in your head finally shows up. And you realize you don't need it anymore. It was a Tuesday night, of course it was. Life-changing calls always seem to land on Tuesdays. Lily and Lucas were already in bed, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the rain tapping the window. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. Hello. There was a pause. Then a voice I knew too well but didn't recognize anymore. Mara, it's Vanessa. Her tone wasn't sharp. No fake confidence. No superiority, just tired. I won't keep you long, she said quickly. I needed to say this. I sat down slowly. I'm listening. She exhaled, shaky. I laughed at that message. When Mom sent it. I laughed while you were in an ambulance. There it was. Raw, ugly. Honest. I didn't know, she continued, about the money. About how much you were carrying. I didn't ask because I liked the way things were. I liked being the favorite. Silence stretched between us. Nothing's easy now, she added quietly. And I know I don't get to blame you for that. I believed her. But belief doesn't mean access to your life again. I'm not asking for money, she rushed. Or forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I see it now. I closed my eyes. Seeing it is the first step, I said. But it's not the finish line. She sniffed. And that was it. No dramatic reconciliation, no tearful montage. Just truth finally spoken, finally heard. After I hung up, I didn't feel angry. I felt free. Because for the first time, I wasn't waiting for someone else to validate my pain. I'd already done that myself. That night, I checked the twins' college fund. Watched the numbers grow. Watched my future build instead of drain. And I smiled. Some apologies come too late to change the past, but just in time to stop owning your present. People talk about freedom like it's loud, like fireworks, celebrations, big dramatic moments. But real freedom, it's quiet. It's waking up without dread in your chest. It's paying bills without resentment attached. It's loving your kids without feeling like you're borrowing energy from an empty tank. 1 year after the accident, I stood in my kitchen watching Lily and Lucas argue over who got the blue cup. Sunlight spilled across the floor. The moment felt small but solid. This was my life now, no emotional IUs, no silent expectations. No paying rent for love. Grandpa had become a constant: Sunday lunches, random check-ins, advice that never judged. You didn't fail as a daughter? He told me once. You just stopped enabling people who failed you. That sentence rewired something in me. Marcus was still around too, not as a hero, not as a savior. Just steady, respectful, present. You don't apologize for existing anymore, he said one night, smiling. I hadn't noticed, but he was right. As for my parents, distance remained. I heard they talked about me more kindly now. Funny how respect shows up once money leaves. But kindness without accountability doesn't rebuild trust. I didn't block them forever. I just stopped chasing something they weren't ready to give. And that choice, that was mine. The twins started preschool. I picked them up every day, watched them run toward me like I was the safest place in the world. I promised myself something then. They would never feel like love was conditional. Never feel like help had to be earned. Never feel like silence was safer than truth. Breaking cycles isn't loud. It's consistent. It's choosing differently over and over. If you're still here, I want you to hear this part clearly. Because it's bigger than my story. For most of my life, I believed love was transactional. That if I gave enough money, time, silence, strength, I'd eventually earn my place. I thought being needed meant being valued. I was wrong. Lying in that hospital bed after surgery, IVs in my arm and fear in my chest, I finally understood something simple and brutal: love that has to be bought was never love. What changed my life wasn't the accident. It wasn't even Grandpa exposing the truth. It was the moment I chose to stop negotiating my worth. I stopped funding people who called me a burden. I stopped explaining pain to people committed to misunderstanding it. I stopped shrinking to make others comfortable. And when I did, I didn't lose my family. I found myself. Today, my life is quieter but stronger. My kids laugh freely. My home feels safe. My money builds a future instead of covering someone else's denial. As for my parents, I don't hate them. I don't wish them harm. But I also don't chase reconciliation that skips accountability. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. Healing isn't pretending. Boundaries aren't cruelty. They're clarity. If someday they come to me with real ownership, not excuses, not guilt trips, not, let's just move on, I'll listen. But I won't pause my life waiting for it. And if you're watching this thinking, this feels way too familiar, let me say something directly to you. You are not selfish for saying no. You are not ungrateful for setting limits. You are not a burden for needing care. You were just carrying weight that was never yours. Putting it down doesn't make you weak. It makes you free. If this story hit home, please hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Subscribe if you want more real stories about boundaries, healing, and choosing yourself. And I really want to hear from you. Have you ever had to stand up to family to protect your peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, take care of yourself. You deserve it.